people, who have maybe a bit of an aversion to astrology, because it has copped a lot of flack, is people think, oh, I don't believe in astrology. But astrology is a language, so you wouldn't really say, I don't believe in Spanish. You can't say that. Like, it doesn't make sense, actually. So maybe you can say, I'm not interested in learning Spanish. I'm not interested in learning astrology. But at the end of the day, people are still going to speak Spanish, and the planets are going to keep influencing you.
Hey guys, welcome to our SoulFam Podcast, where I interview space holders from all over the world. I am your host. My name is Karolina, and I am the Connection Catalyst. Today's guest is Alaine, an astrologer, a teacher, a yogi, a Reiki healer, and a spiritual seeker. Welcome to the show, Alaine. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. I'm super grateful that you agreed to be with us today. And I am so curious about your path, your spiritual journey. How did you become an astrologist, and how did you become a teacher, and all these other beautiful things that you do? So how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and your whole spiritual journey?
Mm-hmm.
How did it
Okay, yeah,
start?
cool. That's a big one. So when I was about 10 years old, somebody gave me the right book, and it was a book by Doreen Virtue, and it was about angels and meditation. And I was kind of raised in an atheist household, but I was quite psychic and sensitive as a young kid. So it was, yeah, with that book, I started meditating and started my journey from there. I did yoga for the first time when I was 14 at school, and then just continued doing that. Started taking that really seriously in my early 20s, and continued on with meditation, ebbing and flowing through my teen years. Yoga has taken me around the world. I've studied in different places around the world, like India and Thailand. And with astrology particularly, that one has been an interesting one. Like, I've always been fascinated in horoscopes, and I think when maybe I was about 23 years old, I just got out of a relationship, and it was great. It was such a toxic relationship, and I fully bloomed, and I moved into this beautiful apartment with a good friend right by the sea, living on the Gold Coast, Australia. It was so fun.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time in my life. And I was, just like reading my horoscopes all the time and being like, yeah, it fits, but like, who is writing this and how do they know? And so it was really that question that took me on a Google search, and I found the birth chart. And then I ended up fishing out my old baby book, finding my exact time of birth, and then finding my birth chart. And it was having the right book land in my hands as well. It was a lady that I used to work with was like, oh, here's an astrology book. And she gave me Spiritual Astrology by Jan Spiller, which I highly recommend for anybody very like early on in the pathway with astrology. It's a beautiful breakdown of how to look at the different planets and their zodiac placements very predominantly, and how can you see each planet as a different archetype that either functions statically or dynamically. And with that sort of like seeing your shadow and light expressions, I was able to start using astrology as a tool of self-study, and also a great tool of self-love and compassion too. And as I started feeling that for myself, I was like, oh, I wonder what other people's charts look like. And then I just started, out of curiosity, looking at the charts of my friends and family around me, and just gaining so much more understanding and compassion. And I wasn't taking things so personally anymore either, because I was like, oh, that's just your Mercury and Scorpio. It's okay. I know how to handle that. Yeah. So it's been it's been pretty cool. Yeah. It sort of grew from that. It was just something that I was doing really passionately. Actually, I was living in Melbourne for a couple of years, and I had the intention of moving down here and like following astrology and yoga, but I sort of got caught up in the hustle and bustle of Melbourne and ended up back in a corporate job. I was a travel agent, and then I was sort of doing that, and I booked myself a one-way ticket to Thailand, and I was like, all right, this is the trip I'm going on. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to stop working for the man, and I'm not coming home until I figure that out. So I got over there and I thought, oh, maybe it's the yoga. But I mean, like, you can't, swing a stick in Thailand without hitting a few yoga teachers. So that wasn't really the key thing, actually. So I used to just very passionately, if I had met people, I'd start talking about astrology. They'd be like, oh, what are you into? I'm like, oh my God, I'm into astrology. Do you want me to look at your chart? And I just start reading for people just like for free and for fun and whatever, because I was so passionate about it. And I remember like typical Thailand Copenhagen vibes. It was like the morning of a night of awesome partying, and I was like covered in biodegradable glitter, and we were just having breakfast, and I was reading for a friend. And one of the sisters that I'd met on my trip who knew why I was there, she was like, Alaine, this is what you do. This is the thing that you do. She's like, I had an astrology session last week, and what you've just said to me is way deeper, way more accurate. Like, this is what you do. And I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up booking in with this guy that she had seen to be like, all right, what does an astrologer do? Like, I'd never actually even had an astrology session. And I booked in with this guy mostly to suss out, like, how do you hold the hour? What's the vibe? And I loved it, but I was also like, oh, yeah, I can do this. So, yeah, it kind of has been bubbling from there. It's been about 4 years since I've been doing it professionally now. Yeah, and then that's now changed, and now I'm teaching as well, which is awesome. Keeps going.
Wow, that's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing. It's so inspiring, because also, I was talking about this to a few people on the podcast, that sometimes this one person telling you one thing can completely change your life. And in your case, this friend telling you, Alaine, this is what you do. You are an astrologer. And you're like, oh, okay. And it just clicks, right? Sometimes there's one book or one friend, one person on the street telling you one thing has the whole butterfly effect on your whole life. And I'm just so glad to hear that now you're teaching it and now you're so passionate about it. And I just love it. I love the story. And it's also great that you started from such a young age. I mean, 10 years old, it's very early for these kind of higher topics, let's say, to start. So that's amazing. That means that you have a lot of beautiful wisdom inside, even from the young age. So I'm even more glad that we are talking right now. So how about you share some of your wisdom with us, with the SoulFam tribe, all the listeners who listen to our podcast, because I am super curious how all these plants affect us, like what it actually does, like how does it even work that these plants have an effect on us? Because I can feel on myself, as I mentioned earlier before we started recording, that if the Mercury is in the retrograde, I freaking know that, because nothing works for me. No internet works, no technology, no thumbnail on YouTube or anything like that just stops working. And something that takes me normally 15 minutes on the computer takes me like 2 or 3 hours, because everything is just like roadblocks on the way all the time. But how does it work, like in terms of the energy, and how do these planets do it that they affect us so much?
That's such a deep, huge question. I'm going to do my best to answer it. Essentially, like, the planets are, they're in our solar system. We are on a planet that is within that solar system. And I think that astrology is a really beautiful reminder that we are all connected to nature. Like, the cycles of nature are really, integral for our human experience, even though, you know, within our cultures and the way that, you know, the cultures and economics have shifted from around the planet, like there is that disconnection to nature, we're still part of the cycles. Something that's, you know, really pertinent, I think, is that people, you know, who have maybe a bit of an aversion to astrology, because it has copped a lot of flack, is people think, oh, I don't believe in astrology. But astrology is a language. So you wouldn't really say, I don't believe in Spanish. You can't say that. Like, it doesn't make sense, actually. So maybe you can say, I'm not interested in learning Spanish. I'm not interested in learning astrology. But at the end of the day, people are still going to speak Spanish, and the planets are going to keep influencing you. So the way that they influence, this is actually something I had to, so I typically practice Western astrology or tropical astrology, and I actually dipped into Vedic Indian astrology to find this information. And it was really because I wanted to learn how to use the planets' placements to influence my yoga teaching classes. So I wanted to do that through the chakra system. I was like, oh, planets are connected to chakras, of course. And through that, I actually now understand that because the influence of the planets is like a subtle magnetic influence, if we're thinking like they're all orbiting around the solar system, there's big energetic pulls that they're doing even on a very subtle level, and these are actually affecting us through our chakra system. So the zodiac and the planets are assigned to certain chakra points, and based on their placements in their chart, based on how they're transiting your chart. So transit astrology is taking into consideration like how the current planets are affecting you. Your natal chart is like the screenshot of the solar system at the exact time of your first breath. Now that is, you know, that screenshot is what you're journeying for the rest of your life. It's up to you to, you know, perfect that moment for the rest of, you know, humanity that just moved through that moment. We're moving through moments right now, and we're all just doing our best, right? And there are babies being born right now, and it's literally their lifetime journey to be perfecting these moments that we are moving through right now. That's their imprint.
Wow, so, that's so deep.
Yeah. It goes amazing. So deep.
Please continue. I love that.
Thank you. So the way that the planets influence us, I mean, depending on which lens you use will tell you different things. So something that's really beautiful is, you know, remembering that astrology is a language, just like any other language that we might speak on Earth. Like, there are certain words and meanings and phrases and perceptions that are solely connected to certain languages that form from certain cultures. So there's like a cultural lens within language. When we learn a new language, we're learning a new way of perceiving reality. And so this is very much the same with astrology. And the thing is that great civilizations all through time from all over the planet have their own astrology. So depending on which cultural lens you're looking at how to read the sky, it's going to tell you a little bit different things. So from looking at a tropical lens and basing it off my experience of astrology, because that's another thing as well. Every astrologer is going to offer you something different, because the astrologer is the interpreter. And they're going to interpret the astrology based on their life experiences, based on their education, based on the lenses that they have lived through and are approaching astrology with. And so how I look at it is that the planets, from a psychological point of view, because I also have a background in mental health, from a psychological point of view, they actually represent different archetypes of the personality. So this really flows with, you know, Jungian psychology, this archetypal psychology, where, they're different characters within the collective consciousness. And so we all carry these different characters, but how they play out is different for each of us based on the mathematical placement of that planet at any given point in time. So like in regards to our chart, for example, when I was born, the sun was in Taurus. So that means, the sun as an archetype is representing like the core central self, like the inner identity, my inner core personality, and also the expression of my higher self in this lifetime is very much that of a Taurus. So it's expressing itself in this earthy, like fixed, slow, steady, loyal pace, like I've got, other fiery placements in my chart, like my Mercury, which is thought processes and communication and perception, that's in Aries. So like my mind is like moving fast, but at my core, I'm like this slow, steady being. So like each planet and asteroids as well, because it goes deeper, is telling you how these different parts of self function. And also we can see how do they interact with each other. Like how does my emotional processes work with my mental way of processing information? Or how does the way that I relate with people influence and interact with my connection to source and spirituality? All of the planets represent this, and the mathematical aspects that they create from each other, like the shapes that they create from each other, also tell us of the relationships that they have within us as well. So it's pretty deep.
Wow, this is amazing. This is probably the best explanation of astrology I've ever heard. So thank you for that. Thanks for sharing. I can feel your passion and it just makes me feel so excited about the topic as well. Because I can really feel that you're all in it. And so I am the most curious about chakra system because I've been pretty much since I started developing spiritually, chakras was like the main theme that I was exploring. And I even wrote my own chakra meditation. I run events all over the world, just guiding the meditation for people with quite profound experiences. People, letting emotions out, crying, or just really being in the group settings and creating beautiful energy. And thanks to the chakra meditation. So I am super curious how the chakras are connected specifically to the planets, because I've never really heard of this concept, and I'm all about chakras in a way. Even my ex-partner used to say, "You're so cute talking about chakras," because it was just such a main theme of my life. I was so often talking about it that he was saying these things.
That.
So how is it? How? Yeah, it's quite funny.
It's kind of like a language in itself, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's such a vast topic as well. But how does it correlate? Is it that the specific planet is represented or linked to a specific chakra? And if yes, can you tell us exactly which chakra is linked to which planet? Because that's just I'm just so interested in it.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to explain this to you. And it also incorporates the spirals as well. Like it's so beautiful the way that it works out. So how it sort of works, okay, starting with your base chakra. So each chakra has a feminine and a masculine side, or you could say the receptive and omissive side, or the introverted and the extroverted, the inhale and the exhale. And that will be associated with, because we can break down the astrology, the zodiac, right? There's 12 zodiac, and just as there are polarity in our universe, like with yin and yang, also the zodiac can be broken into yin and yang. So there's 6 yin and 6 yang, and that's separated by the elements that the planets, the zodiac are connected to. So your earth and water, they work well together. Earth and water make a beautiful garden, and they are your yin zodiac. And then you've got the fire and air, which is, it's very extroverted and dynamic energy. This is the yang energy. So how it works is, starting at the base chakra, on the receptive yin side, we have Capricorn, and on the extroverted side, we have Aquarius. And so then the snake coils up and it crosses over, right? Then we get to the sacral chakra. Now, the yin side is Pisces, and then the yang side is Sagittarius. So then it keeps going up, coming up to the power center. It gets to Aries and Scorpio. then continuing up
That's
into the
me.
heart.
I'm a Scorpio.
Yeah. Oh, you're a Scorpio. We're opposite signs. I love that. And no wonder. That makes a lot of sense. Opposite zodiac. Like, that's a really cool thing, like a little tidbit for anybody listening. Like, whatever your sun sign is, like, you'll have an opposite. So, for example, you and I, Taurus and Scorpio, we're opposite. So, whenever you come in contact with somebody who has an opposite sun sign to you, it's always a really intense, reflective relationship because you guys hold perfect mirrors for each other. So you will probably think to yourself, like, of all the Taurians you've had in your life, it's either intensely great or intensely bad, really depending on how that person is, where they're at and where you're at and what you're reflecting each other. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Polarity. Yep.
Polarity, exactly. Yeah. And so we get to the heart. So the receptive side of the heart is Taurus. The omissive side of the heart is Libra. Then it crosses up again to the throat chakra. We have the receptive side is Virgo and the emissive side is Gemini. Then we come up to the Ajna, and actually, so the Ajna is actually a chakra of polarity too. I'm not sure if you're aware of the Chandra chakra at the back of the head. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So this is actually the sun is this emissive chakra where we're like creating our reality right through our third eye. And the receptive so sun is Leo as well. And the receptive Chandra chakra is connected to the moon and Cancer as well. So yeah, that's all of the zodiac. And then you've got the crown chakra. This one is not really connected to any zodiac, and I really feel like because the zodiac brings us into our earthly, like, solar system experience, but the crown chakra is our connection to source. So it's pulling us back into source consciousness and out of this human experience where it's very bodily orientated and solar system nature orientated. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And it's actually very interesting because I can, from what I know, and I don't know much about astrology myself, but I'm very interested in it, very curious about it, let's say. From what I know about some of these signs, it makes sense how they are assigned to these chakras, but I've never really known that they can be assigned to yin and yang energy. And that's so cool. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I am also curious about how specific planet affects our energies. I mean, like, because I've heard a little bit about Mercury just because it's an intense one for me, but I don't know about other planets. Like, how do they, what kind of energies do they bring specifically? If you could talk about each of the planets briefly or not briefly, depends on you. We still have a lot of time. And how people can use this wisdom to actually get to know more about maybe what they should focus on in life, or maybe what they shouldn't focus on right now, or how how to interpret it in maybe a simple way for people to just use this knowledge. Because as you said, if you know some stuff, if you know this language even a little bit, you can adjust to specific things. For example, do not take action, or do not focus on your computer when Mercury is in the retrograde, because it's going to take you way longer. Stuff, right? So
I got stung by that yesterday.
What kind of energies do they bring to us?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to dive into that. And also I want to say, just going back to the chakras as well, because all of the zodiac have correlating planets. So the correlating planets are connected to the appropriate chakras with the zodiac, as I was explaining before. There's a few ways that you can break up the planets, but the key way is the personal planets and the transpersonal planets. So it's like the planets that are very much in the foreground of our earthly lives, and then the planets that are more subtle and very much telling of our internal worlds. So, for example, we've got the sun. The sun represents, as I was saying before, it's like our core selves, our inner identities, like, what is really like the core missions and karmas and lessons that we're learning for our sense of self and our sense of identity in the world. We've then got the moon. So the sun and the moon are considered planets in astrology. They're also considered luminaries. They have a special relationship with themselves. And which is very, very telling of just like a lot of day-to-day stuff. We have new and full moon peaks happening, once every 2 weeks. I'd love to get into that with you in a bit, actually. That's really juicy. But the moon represents our emotional lens on reality. It's how like our emotional style, our nurturing style, and very much the emotional processing of reality that we're experiencing. Some astrologers will actually argue that the moon is the most important placement in the chart. We then have Mercury, which is the planet of thought process, communication, how we perceive information, how we integrate information, how we express ourselves communicatively, whether that's through writing, speaking, sharing in that way. We then have Venus, who is the planet of relationships. It's the planet that is connected to the material realm, so like money, finance. But really, on the deepest level, it's really about our relationship to reality. Everything that we're participating or coming in contact with in our reality is some form of relationship, even if it's like, me and this cup. I love this cup. It's one of my favorite cups. It's a relationship that I have with the material. And this extends to people as well, and really comes back to what's our relationship with ourselves like. So Venus can also represent the ego at times. Sometimes the sun can be representing the ego, but depending on what branch of astrology you're looking at, Venus can too. We then have Mars. Mars is the planet of passion, drive, determination. Tells us how you function when you get angry, when you're in your primal desire. It's very much connected to sexuality as well. Where it is in the chart tells us like how you go about things. Like, what are you charging towards? Are you a lover or a fighter? That will be really telling of the Mars. And also, it can be quite cool little tool to find if you have sexual compatibility with somebody. It's like, if there's like a compatible Mars placement there, like say if it's like yin and yin or yang and yang, or if someone's got a Mars in Scorpio, that's just a wild card and it's good with everyone. But that can be quite interesting. And not to say that, sharing sexual energy with someone with an incompatible Mars is bad. I've tried and tested that one. It's all still good, but it's interesting to see how it plays out. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, philosophy. It's the planet of experience as well. So it tells us it's the planet of abundance. So it also tells us like in what area of life do you have an abundance of influx, an abundance, and this is like telling of what area of life do you really expand in and grow in as well. Then we've got Saturn. So Saturn is the planet of karma. It's the lord of time. It is kind of like the hard working, like reap what you sow or sow what you reap, however it goes. It's really, the planet of like discipline and detail. Like it wants you to put in the work. And Saturn actually, with the Saturn return, like when Saturn does a full tour of the sun and comes back to the place that it was when you were born, this happens between the ages of 28 to 30. And it's actually your biggest karmic lesson for this lifetime when it first does that. So it's actually the true initiation into adulthood. I'm
Oh
actually
my God.
creating a course on this at the moment because I'm actually in the middle of my Saturn return. It's peaking on the 20th
Me
of the
too.
2nd, 2022. So many twos. When does yours peak?
I don't know when, but I can really feel that right now I'm just going through this big shift. And as you're talking about it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so true for me because
Yeah,
I'm just gonna briefly tell you about this. But a day before
please.
my birthday, which was actually my day of my 29th birthday in Australia, my ex-partner expressed to me that, let's say, that source energy, he channeled source energy, and he expressed to me that we need to let go of the relationship. And I could really feel this in my core, but this was a person I was meant to spend my life with, but I could feel that it's true that we need to let go of it. But we've been together for 3.5 years. We wanted to be together, have kids, have the whole life together, right?
Wow.
But on the day of my birthday in Australia, we decided to let go of this relationship. And my deep core wound in this life is abandonment. And because my dad left when I was 2 years old, and I was so deeply going through this whole letting go process, and all these emotions, subconscious feelings were brought up thanks to this breakup. I say thanks to it because it actually healed me a lot, and it helped me feel more empowered and less codependent, and just so much more in my power and in my just core in a way. And it's been like, it's crazy timing, right? It couldn't happen earlier or later. It happened on my 29th birthday. And I know that there are also
Amazing.
cycles that people go through, and when you start the year 29, it's kind of like a new beginning in a way. So for me, it was exactly on this day. And it's just so funny when you say
Wow.
that there are big shifts and the karmic lessons that you need to go through. Because for me, I know that it's this healing of this abandonment and forgiving the masculine. And actually, this relationship has helped me because he treated me the best. As you know, in the whole world, like he never hurt me, and he never meant to hurt me. And this is also very healing, that I know that, okay, maybe he's leaving, but he still loves me and supports me, and is very much helping me to move through this abandonment wound in childhood. So it's crazy that you say that, because I can so much relate to it, that it's true. It's just true what you say. That,
Yeah,
yeah, this
wow.
whole the big karmic thing is just coming up in these times. So yeah, I feel more adult right now.
Yes, I love that. More adult. Wow, that's such a huge story. It's really been so cool to like connect with people through readings and consultations and check in and be like, hey, let's look at the date of your Saturn return and can we pinpoint, what happened around that time? And yeah, like massive things like losing partners on your birthday, or I have a friend who got married on that day. Like I have another friend who like lost a friend who passed away. Like so many different things that can happen. And yeah, they're really initiating change and growth here, and that's something that Saturn represents. It represents our perceived restriction on reality. So perhaps, and it also represents the father, depending on how you look at it. So even in your case, having this perceived restriction perhaps around how you were approaching life, with this feeling of, oh, well, I'm going to be abandoned, or, like, am I worthy? These sorts of things. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, what house this falls in for you. But yeah, then having this physical crisis, because it's a physical thing that happens, having your partner say, hey, I think we need to split, and then being able to journey with the relationship and receive that healing, like that was karmically set up for you, but you as a soul and a spark of free will, you chose to step into those lessons. So kudos to you, because astrology is potential. It's timing, it's maths, and it's potential. But if we're sitting, I like to say, if you're sitting on your couch eating potato chips and that transit passes you by, like, you've missed your opportunity. With your Saturn return, it only comes around once for this key peak. I mean, if you miss it and maybe don't step into the lesson, there is capacity to keep working on that, and you will have other peaks, like at the 15-year mark after that, and then again at the 30-year mark, where you can really work on that area of life. And all is perfect, whatever happens for anybody. We're all just doing our best. But yeah, it's all about potential. So celebrating you, and how amazing does it feel to go through the eye of the needle and come out the other end and be like, oh wow, like, hey, secure attachment, that feels nice.
Welcome. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. And of course, I'm still going through it, because it happened only in October, at the end of October, and now it's January as we speak. So I'm still in the process of letting go of it, because it's not an easy thing to let go of course. But even after these few months of crying, going to my childhood traumas, and I'm so lucky that I actually do the work that I do, because I work with, childhood traumas, shadow work, and I know how to work on myself. As I always say to everyone, if this happened like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I would be completely devastated. But because I have tools to work through it and heal myself, I actually see it as a beautiful opportunity to raise and to actually go to the depth of my subconscious mind and see what's there. Because otherwise, how could I even go there? If I didn't care about him as much, for example, or if something else would be different, then I wouldn't be able maybe to reach such a depth of emotion. And because I so much wanted to be with him, it's probably the same way that I wanted to be with my dad when I was young, right? It's the same strength of the emotion, the same charge in a way, that now I can really go there, and I have tools to work through it, and I'm just so grateful for that. So thank you for celebrating that with me. It's not an easy process, of course, but I know that it's serving me, and I really encourage everyone who listens, who is going through the breakup, to see it as an opportunity to expand and to grow, because this is what it is, really. And it only means that the universe has something even better for us awaiting. And although for me it was hard to imagine what would be even better, but there is a potential that I could meet someone like my ex-partner, but who speaks Polish, who speaks my language, and I would already be more fulfilled in my life and more understood in a way, because, as you said, languages are a different reality. And if I could meet someone who speaks my language as well, and would be so cool as my ex-partner, then I probably would level up in my life in some ways. So I really believe that the universe wants to bring me a Polish man this time.
Yes, bringing in that Polish man.
Thank you for manifesting it with me.
Yes, absolutely.
We're honored.
Wow. Relationships are just, amazing in that sense of, I remember doing kind of like a little stock take for myself in terms of relationships recently. I was like, okay, if all of the relationships that I've had are me trying to complete patterns of hurt and, desire for connection with my mum and dad, like, how can I break that down? And I actually went through and like wrote down the traits of each relationship, and I was like, oh, that one was a mum one, that one was a dad one. And it's amazing when you can actually catch yourself in that and be like, oh wow, I'm like cycling through a pattern right now of like being attracted to unavailable men that live far away from me because my dad lived in another state. It's like it's amazing to catch yourself in that and be like, do I still want to keep replaying this, or am I ready to let that go? Am I ready to complete that cycle and open a new one? Yeah, it's amazing. And that's it. Like, astrology is all about cycles as well. So it's like, it's really interesting when we take that framework, we can place it onto astrology too, because it's all about the cycles that we're in. Are you ready to break the cycle? Are you ready to step into something new?
Beautiful. I love that. That's amazing. But okay, let's come back to the planets, because we went on this whole ramp of the Saturn coming back.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's come back to the planets, because I'm still super curious about the other ones and what they are bringing.
Yeah, cool. So, so we've done the personal planet. So that's Sun through Saturn. And then we get to one of my favorite planets, which is quite a new planet. It was discovered in 1977. It's called Chiron. And so some astrologers are using this as the new ruler to Virgo. If you look at the symbol, it's like a little key. And it has a few different names. It is called the key to the internal world. It is called the rainbow bridge between the inner and the outer planets. If we have a look at all of, like, in the realm of cosmology, all of the planets in the zodiac actually are associated to different tarot cards, right? But Chiron actually represents the tarot reader. Chiron is the channel for the bridge between the worlds. So Chiron, looking at that planet, it's also, mythology is connected to the wounded healer, is its archetype. So when we look at Chiron in our chart, we're actually looking at our greatest wound. And it's an accidental wound. Whoever gave this to us did not mean to give it to us, but it becomes our biggest wound. And so it's by looking at our wound and taking time to sit with the pain and the emotions, are we able to actually alchemize the gold from that. And this then becomes our greatest healing and offering to other people around us. So it's really quite a special planet in that way. I feel it's very, like, transformative. Like, for example, Chiron takes 50 to 51 years to do a full tour around the sun, and its orbit as well is, like, quite oblong. Like, it spends a lot more time in certain zodiac than it does others because of this, like, strange orbit. There's a term for it, but it's gone out of my mind. So as it transits over your chart and the planets in your chart, it actually triggers that archetype within you to go through a massive transformation and an up level. So if you're going through a Chiron transit, like, that's a real deep time and a great upgrade. So it's a really awesome planet. I love Chiron. So then we start. So Chiron bridges us over into the transpersonal planets, or the outer planets. So we get to the planet Uranus. Some people call it Uranus. Some people call it Uranus. I like to call it Uranus. It is the planet of innovation, invention. It's revolutionary energy. It's rebellious energy. It's also like a fifth dimensional frequency as well. So this is why it has that innovative quality to it, because it's actually vibrating at a higher frequency to us. So we're able to use Uranus to kind of pull through new things. So it's actually quite a strong planet in that of inventors, in those who are at the forefront of revolutions. It's looking at how Uranus is going at the moment, it's having a time over the last few years, with so much revolution and upheaval that's going on the planet now, and it tells us our unconventionality too. So looking into where Uranus placement is will show you where is your expression of unconventionality. How does that show through for you? So really cool planet. And then we've got the planet Neptune. So Neptune is connected to dreams, spirituality, the subconscious. It's the planet connected to source, divinity. But with that as well, it's also the planet of illusions and delusions. So you might notice that, like, as I'm sort of going through them all of them have their shadow and their light expressions. And so, yeah, the thing I love about Neptune and the thing I love about astrology is that the best way to learn anything, really, humanity has shown time and time again, is through storytelling. So, peering into the mythology behind all the planets in the zodiac, like, it's actually through metaphor that we convey feeling. I can tell you something very analytical, like, what could you say? Like, you might ask me how my day was, and I would be like, oh yeah, it was a bad day, this, that, and that happened. Or you might ask me how my day was, and I could say to you, oh, today I feel like I got hit by a bus. Like, one is going to convey, something very practical. The other is going to convey, like, wow, how do I feel? And so it's through metaphor and storytelling that we really get the feel for these planets. And so one of my favorite little anecdotes or stories to explain Neptune energy and the journey with Neptune is that the man who goes to the pub to drink, or the bar to drink, pub is maybe like an Aussie term, the man who goes to the bar to drink and the man who goes to the church to pray are both searching for the same thing. And so with that, it's like we can either, use our vessel, this organic, fleshy, complex, incredible, magical body. We can either, put alcohol and substances and preservatives and shitty food in it, and it's going to skew the channel. All of a sudden, our connection to source is not so clear and clean. And so Neptune starts to express itself in that illusion, delusion sort of way. But when we, treat our body well, and we drink good water, and we eat good food, and we go for walks and meditate and get sunshine, all of a sudden we're honoring our body as a channel. We're able to connect to source energy more purely and able to get more clear intuition. So really, this is sort of the journey around Neptune there.
Wow.
And yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I'm particularly interested about Neptune because, as you say, it has a link with the mythology and, Neptune as like a god. I actually heard from two people in my life that Neptune is my spirit guide. And they saw they saw the vision of Neptune supporting me as Poseidon in other words, and so I'm particularly interested in Neptune because I feel like, okay, Neptune, but Neptune is also a planet. So am I somehow connected to this planet? Because I know that mythology is connected to probably to that as well. And so it's really nice for me to hear that because I'm super focused on my spiritual growth in this life, and I feel like that Neptune qualities express it in a way, this connection to the divine and intuition.
Amazing.
And
I wonder I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised if you had like a predominant Neptune placement in your chart, like it was, conjuncting your moon or, doing something with, I feel like oftentimes when I have clients and they've, spent some time with psychics or other healers, it's so often that information that's being channeled through is able to be seen in the chart. So I bet you we'll have to have a look at your chart and see what's going on with your Neptune planet placement. I'm awesome. Curious now.
Let's do it. I'm super curious about it as well. And awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. It's amazing. I freaking love it. All these planets and all these qualities. Now we can understand more about this. And so with the signs, also
I'd love to.
The signs
sorry to
have
interrupt
a specific.
You, I'd love to just quickly share about Pluto because I didn't get to share about Pluto,
please,
which is actually your sun. It's your sun ruler as a Scorpio. So
Awesome. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
jump into it.
sorry, yeah, cool. So we can't forget Pluto, you know. It's definitely still a planet in my books, not a dwarf planet. But yeah, Pluto is amazing. So Pluto is actually connected to the mythology of Hades, the lord of the underworld. And this planet represents birth, death, sex, transformation. It is it's essentially like connected to our shadows and that and what is hidden, you know, in our depths. It's incredibly karmic planet, and wherever we see Pluto in our birth charts will tell us, if we're looking at it from an evolutionary lens, you know, considering reincarnation. Looking at Pluto will actually tell us in like what area, like the house, the area of life will tell us what area of life have you come through in this lifetime feeling like you deeply already know this area of life. And so you kind of come through with this already preconceived worldview. However, you are now born in a different culture from where you have developed this worldview. So you're kind of holding on to it from a past culture. Now you're born into this new culture, literally to challenge your old perception of expertise, which represents your Pluto placement. So you're literally here to completely let your old worldview die in whatever way it is, whatever area of life it's connected to broaden and open the expansion and experience of what that area of life can look like from a whole new cultural lens. So it's a really important planet.
Wow. That's awesome that we experience it to be challenged. I like this lens, you know, that we are here to actually let go of the old perceptions or bring in the new perspectives on even sometimes the same things, but from a different lens, because we are source and source wants to know itself, right? We are here to experience life and to get to know ourselves through others and through experiences, and how we react to specific situations is like a reflection for the source to know itself. So I absolutely love that. I am so glad that you brought the Pluto up, because I would probably forget about it, but it's such an important planet.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your perception of that. Oh, love a Scorpio mind. Love it. Guys, so
What does
deep, so
What does it
analytical.
mean to you? What does it mean to you to have a Scorpio mind?
Oh, okay. To have a Scorpio sun really is what I'm referring to. I love Scorpio energy. I mean, like, you know, it's my opposite. So as I was saying before, it can either be like intensely amazing or intensely bad. But you know, my best girlfriend is a Scorpio. We've known each other for like 10 years, and you know, I've got a few other like particularly like Scorpio women, like fuck yeah, Scorpio women. Sorry for swearing, man. Bleep me out.
No, that's
But
fine.
Scorpio sun. Okay, cool. Thank you. I've been trying to like keep the swearing down. So yeah, Scorpio to me is like it's an individual who has come here to have a very intense lifetime, because the journey of Scorpio is intensity. Like, we can actually look at the wheel of the zodiac as a wheel to enlightenment, like a pathway step by step, like how do we get there? And when we actually meet Scorpio, Scorpio is the one that teaches us about love. Scorpio is the one that teaches us about ecstatic, blissful ecstasy, connection to source, all of the heightened, juicy emotions. But because it's experiencing that, it cannot experience that without knowing the polarity. So Scorpio also knows the depths of the underworld and the darkness and the isolation and the grief and the shame, all of those. So Scorpio is really teaching us, and you know, you've got your sun there, but we all have Scorpio in our chart somewhere. But somebody journeying with a Scorpio sun, especially someone who is dedicated to self-study and self-work, is a powerful force. A Scorpio that has the capacity to be vulnerable, because because Scorpios, being that you're connected to the Manipura chakra, the yellow chakra, part of your journey is around power. So, because it's the power center. So with that, there's it's like your sort of, it's, Scorpio is the second water. So it's very intuitive and aware of the energies and emotions of the people around you. This is why Scorpios are really can be quite introverted and sensitive. And if a Scorpio is tired, that tends to be when the Scorpio sting comes out. And sometimes you might say something hurtful to someone, and you're like, shit, I didn't mean to say that, or I didn't mean to come across like that. It, like, the way I understand it is that Scorp, like, you have too much other people's emotions in your aura, babe. Like, go have a rest, go recharge with self, because you guys are so in tune with other people's emotions. But with that, it can also, it can sometimes feed into our own stories as human beings. Is it intuition or is it your own shit that you're feeling as well? So the key with Scorpio is vulnerability, and because it's hard to be vulnerable as a Scorpio, because there's that trust stuff which comes with power. But when a Scorpio can get to the point in their life where they know that the most important thing is showing up and being vulnerable, not for the response of someone else. Maybe someone else might receive you well, and then, yay, the vulnerability paid off and you win. Or maybe that person might not receive you well, and that might be really painful. But you showed up and you were able to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is the superpower of the Scorpio. That is the key to freedom for the Scorpio. So, yeah, I have mad respect for the Scorpio, because you guys have come in for an intense lifetime. You're very intuitive. And I just love a Scorpio, love an integrated Scorpio.
Wow.
Does that land for you?
So deep. All of it touches me on a deep level, really, because all of it is true. And I'm so glad that you shared all that, because now our listeners know how deep you can go, or have a tip of the iceberg of how deep you can go in explaining the sign and all these qualities. And it's only one sign that you went into right now. So there is vast
one sign
wisdom
and one planet
behind. Yeah. And vast wisdom behind how this all interlinks and correlates. And it's just so cool, because everything that you said really resonates with me. And I feel like now I'm sharing myself more with the world, and I'm stepping more into my vulnerable self, and I'm posting things on YouTube, even if I am not feeling like 100%, in it. I'm still like showing up and doing this and expressing my authentic self, even if I don't look perfect, even if I make mistakes. I'm just there because I feel like now my mission is to share the authentic self and help other people be vulnerable and show authentically, no matter how they look, no matter how they feel, just show up as they are. And that just resonates with me so much about this vulnerability lesson, that it's the theme that is coming up for me, to be vulnerable and to share everything openly with the world, because then I can inspire others to do the same. And if we were all vulnerable and communicating our true feelings and being open to people, the world would be a completely different place, I think, if we just communicated more, and if we were just more accepting of people feeling however they feel, because that's what it is. If we can let people feel however they feel, we give them space to be who they are, and they feel we are unconditionally present with them, and we are compassionate, and then we heal. This is how we heal, right? If we have someone else there with us while we feel like shit, if we could have someone be like, it's okay that you feel this way, I'm with you, I understand. It's so healing. And that's what I do with my clients. And I can see how this one thing of being present with someone when they express their authentic self, no matter what it is, no matter what it means, how healing on a deep level it can be. So thank you so much for sharing all that, because I can really feel that this is where I'm at, and this is my mission in a way in this life, to share my vulnerable self and to inspire others to do the same. So thank you so
Yes.
much. This is amazing.
I love
And
that. You're so
so
welcome.
that's amazing. We have a few minutes left. So what would be the
Yeah.
main perspective on astrology that you would like to share with us, the main theme, in a way, the main perspective that would help people to maybe step into it or start their journey with astrology? Or, you know, for someone like me, for example, who is not much of an idea, how do I start my journey? How can I get to know it more? And what's the main, you know, maybe should I go to an astrologer and start there? Or, you know, do I need to know a lot before I start this kind of session? Or how would you say that someone can begin their journey with astrology?
That's such a beautiful question. I think it really depends on, I don't think there's a blanket answer because everybody learns differently. So maybe tuning in with what works really well for you. Like, for example, I'm quite a visual person, so I work really well with, I am mostly self-taught from books. Thankfully, books was really perfect for me. And yeah, I can absolutely offer like a great reading list for people to start on. Perhaps, something that I'm like running at the moment, for example, is like a beginner's foundations to astrology. And really within that, I think like getting a handle on, like, if you want to take it to a deeper level, because there's different levels to it, right? You could just get like the app, the pattern, or co-star, and you can start to like have it generate for you. But if you want to actually start taking it into your own hands, I recommend getting like a solid foundational understanding of the zodiac, the planets, the houses, and the aspects. So it's like the planets tell you what part of you. The zodiac that they fall in tell you the characteristics of that archetype, that archetype expressing itself this way or that way. The houses tell you where, in what area of life are they expressing, and the aspects tell you the relationship between those different parts. So once you have an understanding of that, you can actually look at one of, those circle charts with all the lines and the planets in them and start to actually see what's going on. And from there, for me, it worked that I was able to, get an understanding of that. I read a really fantastic book which gave me the foundational understanding of chart reading in that way. And then I was able to just continue reading different books and studying my chart. Like when I was first reading, I was printing out my chart and I was like sticking it into the front of all my astrology books so I could keep referencing back. But, that might not serve everybody. I think something that's really dropped in for me recently, like working as a teacher and an astrologer, and also, I have my own small business, so I have to like do all my own marketing and these sorts of things too. And something that really dropped in for me, particularly challenging this notion of, I don't believe in astrology. Well, actually, astrology is a language. Like, maybe you're not interested in learning it, but if you are interested in learning it, like, how do we learn a language? We speak it, we listen to it, we read it, we write it. So I think like joining the conversation is the best way to go about it too. Even like no matter what level you're at, like I recommend, watching people on YouTube, reading, like following some astrologers that you like, and reading what they have to say about the planets and the placements. I've just launched a subscription service with my Patreon, which is like $18 a month, and that includes two like fortnightly, so twice a month, astrology calls. So it's like where we get to jump on, we look at what the current planets are doing, and we talk about how they're influencing us, and then there's an opportunity for people to discuss and ask questions and these sorts of things. Even if it's just participating and just listening and starting to be around people speaking the language, we start to pick it up. It's just like any other language, really. So maybe it's getting a tutor, maybe it's joining a class, maybe it's reading a book, maybe it's listening to podcasts, or maybe it's all of it. I highly recommend all of it. Cover all bases.
Perfect. So how can people find you? What would be the best way?
The best way is on my Instagram is where I'm most active. So that is Alaine Simone. So ALAINESIMONE. That's where I'm most active. That's where I'm sharing the most content and sort of like the central source point there. I've also got a website, which is just alainesimone.com. And through there, you can find astrology resources as well. Like I've got a bookstore on my website, which has like a lot of the books. I'm still continuing to build the inventory, but it's a lot of the books that I've found really helpful. Along my journey, and I've given a little write up and explanation of like why it's good and what I got out of it, to make it really personal. I've also selling this moon phase guide. I know that we don't have heaps of time, and I could talk about astrology forever, but it's a tool to make kind of like a little bit more advanced astrology more easy for people, because what's really cool is every time there's a new and a full moon, it's affecting us all collectively in a certain way. Like, for example, we've got this full moon coming up on Monday in Cancer. So it's affecting humanity in a way which is very much about emotional security, sensitivity, the home, family, connection to mother archetype. But then it's going to be falling in a different house area of life for all of us. So we can actually, using the exact degree the moon happens at, because it's all mathematics, we can find what area of life does each one fall in. So the full moons will show you a peak of a cycle. It's going to tell you what area of life is in review right now, what can you see, what can you learn from, what needs to be released. And a new moon is a new cycle. And these cycles actually go longer than a month. It's a misconception that they're only a month long. They're actually a full year long. So from new moon to new moon is a year, and new moon to full moon is 6 months. So full moon is like a peak of a cycle. So as we're approaching this full moon coming up in Cancer, we're all coming to this 6-month peak of like, how have we been trekking in that area of life? And it's coming up in that way. So yeah, this customizable moon phase guide helps you to like get a handle on, okay, where are my house cusps and how can I start tracking the new and full moons in what area of life is coming up? Because then as well, we can start using, like, you have the option. It's like, okay, yeah, you have the awareness for to have compassion for self and to be like, oh, those things are coming up. Like, I'm not going to be so hard on myself. Life's not that random. It's actually so much less random than a lot of people think it is. But also, you can use it for manifestation and ritual as well. So like, say if you were doing like a little burn ceremony or something for your new or full moon, you'd know, okay, well, this is particularly affecting my house of home. So what am I calling in for home? Or this is affecting my house of career. What am I wanting to see in my career? And putting more intentional seeds there, so you can actually really start working with the energy of the planets, not just, flowing with the current of what they've got. You can actually learn how to swim with the currents and get the most out of it.
Wow, that's great. And it's so cool that we are speaking about it right now, because it seems like it's a great time right now to get interested in it and to get one of these and to start working with it and be more intentional. Especially now in these times, I feel like people need more wisdom about from the ancient times, really, because it's an ancient wisdom that we are talking about here. So thank you so much for sharing all that. Unfortunately, we gotta close it up right now, but I'm super grateful that you came on the podcast today. This was such a beautiful conversation and a lot of wisdom flowing through you. So thank you so much. And I hope that we will have a chance to talk to each other again on the podcast at some point. And I'm definitely gonna contact you for an astrology session, because I just loved what you shared. So we're gonna speak about it. So thank you so much, and namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, beautiful souls, for being with us today. This conversation was mind-blowing. I freaking loved that, and I hope that you loved that too. I am just reminding you that we're in the process of creating the directory of healers and coaches and everyone who I spoke to on soulfam.com. So stay tuned to know when that's ready. And I wish you a wonderful day, wherever you are, sending you much love. And thank you so much for being with us today.